Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet, headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we operate and look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, one of the key components of all this as we're looking around the globe is the United Nations itself, and the work that it's doing, reaching out to all 214 countries and territories, and at the same time to provide a forum so people can actually talk about the issues, provide the action, be engaged, but at the same time to reduce conflict. And we have a representative who's with the United Nations Association in Washington, D.C., called the National Capital Area United Nations Association. This is Dr. Jesse Nickelson, who is the Vice President of Education Programs. And Jesse, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about education and outreach that's going on through your association, and why would the association be engaged in this kind of work as far as education and outreach to the community?
Sure. You've heard plenty about the Global Classrooms program, which is the program that reaches out to high school youth and educates them about the importance of the work of the United Nations and how it brings people together to not only take care of conflict around the world, but also to collaborate and come up with answers to today's problems. We live in Washington, D.C., which is, I think, the greatest city on the planet, and we are full of young professionals, policymakers. There's a world of people who have an interest in what's going on around the world and what role the UN plays in that. So for the United Nations Association National Capital Area, it's important for us to give people the opportunity to learn about what's currently going on, educate them about very important issues. Climate change is the big one on our agenda right now, and give them an opportunity to do some work on those issues as well.
Now, looking at young professionals, the millennials would assume that's the ones that you're actually talking about. In some ways, they're intensively engaged. Other ways, it's very difficult to get them to be involved in, some type of group organization outside of their own work and their own areas. I guess tribes now they're right. Calling themselves. But that's your focus. So, what are you doing special that engages, entices, and makes them want to become part of the United Nations Association here in the National Capital Area?
Well, we think young people are the future, as you heard about Global Classroom. And we have so many young professionals in this area. It's really a key strategy for the United Nations Association National Capital Area to engage that group. They're doing internships. They're working in very interesting places that from a broad array of policy stances. They could be on Capitol Hill. They could be at universities. They could be at NGOs doing very interesting work. And as you said earlier, they want to be involved. And so we've decided to see if we can invite them in to help really create what we think the future is going to be. We have a lot of questions on the table right now, particularly on climate change and some other issues. And we want to engage them and see what they think. And also start getting their creative minds and innovative thinking into helping solve the problem.
Now, looking at internships, this is something that's really used to be was something that was desired. Now it's almost mandatory. If you don't have internships when you're going in to compete with 10,000 others that may have a similar degree that you have, it really is going to hurt. And so it's something you need to do. Tell us a little bit about the opportunity. One, what is an internship for those around the globe that have a different concept of that? And then being in Washington, D.C., why is that such a special place where, literally thousands are coming here to have internships and, the nation's capital? Why is that?
I think what's most important about an internship, particularly in Washington, D.C., is the ability to get experience, to see how the work is currently being done, and to explore ideas about how the work might be done later. How deep are the problems we're facing? What are the constraints? What are policymakers saying about it right now? What do we learn from that? And to be an intern, whether it's the United Nations Association or in any other policy think tank in DC or any government facility, you get to think about that. You get to hear about it. You get to meet the experts. And so there's a value there that I think is very, very important. Almost like an apprenticeship in some ways, though not so defined into doing a particular job, but learning about the issues, learning what people are thinking about them in terms of what's possible, what people don't think is possible. And there's a value there that's very rare, particularly to get in a place like Washington, D.C.
And working with your own association right here in Washington, D.C., this whole thing of networking is really key. And I think that's probably one of the main keys of this whole thing. It's really the linchpin, the glue that keeps all these interns but makes them the professionals they want to be in the future. How do they go about that networking process? And why, when they come here, not to say, oh, I'm in Washington, D.C., I want to take care of all the, the social values that are going on here, but to really be engaged and then to augment those connections once they leave their internship?
Yeah, for the United Nations Association National Capital Area, networking is a priority strategy for us. There's an assumption that young professionals and millennials like to network, particularly in a social media and digital sense. And we've taken that a step further. What we are interested in is not only providing opportunities for young professionals to expand their network with each other, but also to do it intergenerationally. So we have members and supporters in our network who have worked in the World Bank, who have worked at the United Nations Foundation, the United Nations itself, who've worked on Capitol Hill. And so everyone in the United Nations National Capital Area family understands that we're looking at the long game. So how do we bring together older, experienced people and professionals with the younger professionals who will have to lead this work in the future?
And looking at it too, and this is the whole thing, and I really glad you brought that out, Jesse, is about multi-generational. But many times we think that, the millennials are here and, the baby boomers are here, and then you have the more, the wisdom, the elders, if you will. But really, they're interacting on a day-to-day basis, particularly when you're in a place as Washington, D.C. So looking at your association, what kinds of activities, what kinds of things do you do through your education outreach programs that allow them almost on a day-to-day basis to have the opportunity for this mix across all generations and even socioeconomic types?
Well, for one, we do advocacy work, and in Maryland and Virginia in particularly, we have events where we teach people how to actually advocate, how to write their congressmen, their senators, even their local politicians, how to push their representatives to take an action. What we've been doing in the last couple of years is also starting to have events around key issues where we invite experts to be on a panel. And then we bring in people who are currently working on this particular issue, such as climate change. And we'll bring graduate students and university students from the Young Professionals Network. And we'll bring them all together to not only learn about what the issue is, but to start putting some thoughts on the table together about what solutions might look like. So for climate change, we're at the beginning, right? We've got all these countries that have agreed to do something, and now they have to figure out what that is. So for us locally, we want to be the local global nexus. We want to be that organization that brings people working on this, who are learning about this, who know they want to work on this as they grow older, together to start talking about what might really work and can be put back forward through U.S. government and the President's administration to the UN to say this is what we think we can accomplish.
Now, looking at this whole thing as far as COP21, the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, what do you see your association through the National Capital Area being able to do? What's realistic as far as being involved, engaged, and also helping to set the policy, because this is really a global phenomena and there's going to be tens of thousands of people involved in that. And you're saying we're in Washington, D.C., we want to be the nexus of all that. What's the next step?
I think for us, we have so many people professionally in our network who are experts in these fields, who have worked on these problems for many, many years, from a variety of stances, from policy to science. And now I think what it is really bringing folks together with the community, with citizens, to start really taking these high-level thoughts that policymakers have and hear from people, what can they do? What can we do at the ground level from a grassroots stance? What can citizens do on a day-to-day basis that can help contribute to the U.S.'s portion of the solution?
Yeah, and looking at this whole thing as far as climate change is concerned, how do you think you can advance that topic? Because, you know, the world in essence agrees there's, you know, severe climate change going on, still have a few deniers, but what's the next step as far as how you can advance that so that people really stay on track, stay focused as far as climate change is real, and this is what we need to do next?
I think climate change, when you look at it as a problem, can be tied to several of the global goals for the Sustainable Development Goals. And so for us, I think we're moving our program in that direction to really look at the Sustainable Development Goals. 7 of those goals address the environment and climate directly. And so as we develop programming, we have an eye on those goals to really tie them into the discussion around climate change. So whether it's education, poverty, urbanization, and building cities and where people live, the conversation around what the impact of those decisions are on climate should be part of our conversation.
We only have about 45 seconds. As you can tell, the time marches on. But what do you see for the growth and development, expansion of your own association here in the National Capital area? Well,
as a city, there's a lot of movement. People come, people go, governments change, parties change. We want to touch as many people as we can. We want to invite and include as many people as we can. So we're looking for growth in terms of participation numbers. We're developing social media presence. We're developing many different avenues for people to participate besides sitting in a room with people who are experts and lecturers. So,
well, it's tremendous what you're doing. This is Dr. Jesse Nickelson, Vice President, Education and Programs, and I've added outreach programs to that. United Nations Association, National Capital Area. Jesse, thank you for being with us and sharing. You have a fantastic organization. We appreciate you being here, and thank you to your viewers for listening to our experts that we have here as far as the United Nations are concerned as we look around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet.